Ben Jacobson here with Ben Jacobson Photo, and I just wanted to walk you through my basic initial impressions with my new 5D Mark III versus my old 5D Mark II. I've been using a 5D basically for the last 6 years between the Classic and the Mark II, so I just wanted to show you just some initial thoughts on it and how it's different and improved and maybe not improved. So the first thing is the body shape is a bit different. They've added the thumb groove here, which is very similar to the way the 7D was shaped. The old 5D shape was much kind of just a round circle here, which worked, but this is much more ergonomic in shape for your thumb, which is really nice. The one thing that it does for me is the distance between this AF on button and the live view button here is pretty small for the size of my thumb. So a lot of times when I pick the camera up, my thumb will slide in here and just flip the switch over to video, which kicks it into video mode like that. Now that I know why it's doing that, it's not really a big issue, but the first few times I was like a little confused as to why it all of a sudden switched to live view. The other really nice thing on the body, it's a small detail, but on the 5D, the battery door or the CF door just kind of sit when you open them. It's just based on gravity. On the 7D, or sorry, the 5D Mark III, you can tell they're sprung open. The weather sealing does, however, look the same on the compartment doors, so they're saying this is better sealed as they did the 7D. I'm not sure about that. The one thing that does suggest it's built a little bit better is it is noticeably heavier than a 5D Mark II. It's 100 grams, which is, it's a little over 10%. I think this weighs 850 and that weighs 950. Obviously both these lenses on here are fast primes, a lot of glass. They weigh a decent amount, but I still, just pulling it out of the box and putting a lens on it the first time, I did notice it was heavier. Not really something that would sway my decision, but it's worth commenting on. Another thing that's different a little bit that I don't like as much is the diopter here and here. It's not marked on the 5D Mark II, where there's a textural difference on it. There's a little bump, but on the 5D II, there's a little white line. They both get knocked very easy. I would say the 5D Mark III is actually easier to do. The 5D II is a little more clicky. And because of that, you bump this one more, at least so far. I've had it happen twice. And it's harder to just glance down and see that it's been bumped. So that's maybe not quite as nice. Another thing that's changed, obviously, is the screen itself. This has, I guess it's like the glasses, it touches the LCD, however you want to say that, where there's an air gap. It's a different shape, slightly bigger, physical changes, but it is much nicer to see in daylight and not in daylight. But they just got rid of the airspace, which means you won't have any more dust under there, which is nice, but it just looks better. The other change, obviously, this is, like I said, you bump it with your thumb, but it's a much better setup. I'm sure I'll learn not to bump it. And to go from live view to video, it's so much better than using the direct print button over here. They did change the rear wheel feel. It's a softer, like a rubbery feel, where this one's a plastically clicky feel. The power button's obviously been moved. The dial locks, which I thought I would hate, but actually now that I've been using it, it's not that bad at all. Another interesting thing is once you wake this up, your info button can have 3 options. I've set it up so it's just the level. So you hit that and there's your level. Looks like my table's not perfectly level. But then you hit it again and it goes off. Your Q button brings up, I'm not sure what they call this, but you can set a lot of settings from here, which is quite nice. You can go up and change your aperture and AV mode. You can change your exposure comp, your ISOs. Here's a really nice one. You can switch what cards you write to and how you write to them. And then here's where you can set all your custom functions really quick off the Q menu. That menu is an option to come up under info, where info would cycle through 3 different menus, and I believe I actually have this one set up. It brings it to that, which is the Q menu here. There's a second display on the 5D II, which is the same as the third display here. but it's just a lot of just random information that for me means nothing. It kind of displays your ISOs and things like that, but that's all on that screen. So I've turned that off on mine, so it's really nice to just be able to, boom, bring up that, or hit Q, bring up that, change your settings there. So that's really nice. Now, one of the other changes, you can see delete and play are in the same spots. So anyone that's used a 10D, 20D, 30D, anything from that series, or any 5D, knows where those are now. So by that, they've then moved magnify here. And at first, you will be pressing these buttons a lot to try to zoom in, and they don't do anything. I do wish they'd made that a custom function. It would have been really nice to be able to just also use that. The new system works well, and the thing is you know where these two buttons are, so you learn very quick it's just the one above play. So in the dark, blindfolded, I can find play and delete, and I now am just learning, okay, one up from play is magnify. So if we look at some pictures here, if you just hit magnify, mine, this is an option, but it's zoomed in to the focus point at, I think it says fit to screen or 100% or something like that. You then use the dial up here to zoom out if you want, or zoom in if you want. But yeah, if we go back to play, it does that, which is actually quite nice. Now, the other thing you have is if you hit this, bring up replay again, that's an option to use set, which I've always done. If you then hit this button, notice how there's the blue double box there. You can then use two different views, and the thing I like doing here is let's see here, oh yeah, you hit that, so you can technically so that's the same image on both sides, and you can set it up so you're looking at it zoomed in there, and then over here you can switch the info, and then that's the histogram of that area, and that's the histogram of the whole thing. It's actually pretty cool. The one thing I haven't figured out how to do yet is to set a default view here, because for me, I don't really want to compare two images. I want to look at one image, but I would appreciate these two views. So it's kind of weird the way you can't, like if we hit that, hit this, and then hit that, it's back out to comparing again. So it doesn't remember that. I wish it did. But other than that, I mean, that's there might even be a way to do that. I don't know. So I can't really criticize them that much. It's definitely something fun to play with, but I'll have to learn some more about that. But initially, the magnify is very weird, but then you do learn it. The other change that actually is quite nice is the depth of field preview button used to be over here. Get it back in view. And now it's over here. And at first, it was kind of weird why they moved that over there, but then they allow you to configure that button to do anything you want. So let me bring in the menu here. So we're going to hit the Q button. Come on. Q button, we're going to go in here, and then that's your options. You hit that, and the one I have it on, you can see it says hopefully one shot and then an arrow and AI servo, and what that means is my body is set up so I'm in one shot mode most of the time around the house with the kids. But if you press and hold, see how it just switched? I'm holding it, you let go, it switches back, you hold it, it switches. And what that allows you to do is, instead of having to use AI focus, which is terrible, or be switching all the time, you can just tap that button and it switches for you, which is very nice. There's several other options in there you can pick, but that's the one I've found to be very useful for myself. And then one other thing on the exterior is if you're shooting and you press that button, the paintbrush button in white, here's where you get picture styles, which only affect JPEGs, multiple exposure, which I haven't even touched yet. I'm very curious to see how it works, but I just have had no time to play with that yet. And then HDR, and normally I'm not a fan of HDRs. I'd rather just use gradual neutral density filters or maybe blend to exposures. But the one thing that this does that's pretty cool is, say you're out and you want to bracket 3 shots. You can come in here and you enable it here. Auto works well, or I've been using 2EV or just guessing depending on the scene. You pick your effects here. The top 2 are the least offensive, I would say. Embossed is terrible, bold is pretty bad, vivid's obnoxious as well, but standard and neutral are pretty good in terms of just at least representing what you might process your images to be in the end. But then you come out here, continuous or one shot. One shot means it'll take one HDR. When it's done, it goes back to normal shooting mode instead of having the next, taking 3 more shots for another HDR. And then auto image align means you handheld basically. If you enable it and shoot from a tripod, it doesn't mess anything up, but the image will get cropped if that is on, no matter what. So that's just worth noting. And then this is the cool part, save source images. You can save just the HDR, which saves just a JPEG, but I'm not a big fan of that. The cool thing is you can save all images. So if you're doing if you're doing bracketing a lot and have it set to 3 shots, which it's an option on this to go up to 7 now. But yeah, if you set this to save all images, you get the 3 RAWs and the 1 JPEG HDR. So you really don't lose anything by doing it, and you get the HDR to just see kind of a preview of what a processed image might look like, which is pretty cool. So that is, I think, about it for the exterior. They've added a headphone jack, a few other things under there, but that's pretty much it for the outside of the body. This is already 11 minutes long, so I will cut here and give you a second part for the menus, because the menus go pretty in-depth. So Ben Jacobson photo with my initial 5D Mark III review here, and just basically the similarities and the differences with the outside of the body. So yeah, thank you, and I will post a link to the second clip at the bottom of this, like